Well, good morning. Good to be with you again this morning. And I've been thinking this week, watching again this week of all the violence that's taking place and the riots and the destruction, people losing their businesses and losing their life in some cases, and just all of the vandalism that's going on. I'm thinking, you know what, that's just what they said was going to happen in the last days. It's how it's written. So I got to thinking about all of that violence and trouble, and a lot of the trouble is stemming now. People are saying, you owe me something for what happened to my relatives 150 years ago. Whether or not they actually had any relatives there or not. And there's nobody alive today that was from 150 years ago. And so they're just going around and they don't know anything else, but this is a terrible place to live, at least in their mind. And so there's at least two factions here. One that likes the country the way it is. Two, that there are others that want to tear it down. And so I was thinking about that, and that's kind of what I'm going to hint at this morning, or talk about this morning. Actually, I'm going to be speaking from Genesis chapter 25, verses 19 through 34. I'm reminded, as I'm thinking about, people can't let go of the past and whatever has bothered them, whatever's in their mind. And I was thinking about a story of two monks. There was a senior monk and a junior monk, and they were traveling one day through the woods and down a dirt path on their way to wherever it is they were going. And of course, monks have taken a vow not ever to touch a woman. Well, as they were walking along, they came to a river. They were going to cross the river. And they had to prepare themselves, take off their shoes and so forth, and pull up their robe and tie it up and the like. And it turns out just a few yards away from them was a very pretty woman. And of course, they looked at each other, and when the woman asked them if they would help her across the river, because they had sworn this vow never to touch a woman. And so they didn't know what to do. And finally, the older monk, the senior monk, picked the woman up and put her on her shoulders and walked her across the river. And then when they got to the other side, he gently set her down on the path again. And the junior and senior monk, together, they walked down the path. Well, the junior monk was so shocked at what he saw, seeing the senior monk touch a woman. Just so shocked, he couldn't believe it. He was speechless. And they walked for an hour, 2, 3 hours, but still not a word was spoken among them. The junior monk just couldn't bring himself to say anything. And after a while longer, he turned around and he said to the senior monk, said, "You know we've taken that vow never to touch a woman. How could you do such a thing? How could you pick her up and set her on your shoulders?" The senior monk replied, said, "Brother," said, "I set that woman down 3 hours ago, more than that. Why are you still carrying her?" Now this is a little simple Zen story, but it's meaningful. It has a beautiful message about living life in the presence. You see, that junior monk couldn't let go of the past, something that happened hours ago. And many of us can't let go of something that happened a few hours ago or a few years ago. We carry the past hurts around with us, holding on to past resentments, and the only person that we're hurting when we do that is ourselves. We all go through tough times in life. We all get hurt by something someone else said, and others get hurt by things we say, whether they're intentional or not. And most of us don't mean any harm to somebody, but we don't know what's going to trigger somebody else's thinking. And we could choose, when we get hurt, we could choose to ruminate over the past actions or events, But again, it will just weight us down and zap our energy from us. Instead, we can choose to let go of what doesn't serve us anymore and concentrate on the present moment until we can find a level of peace and happiness in the present circumstances of our life. We will never be content because now is all we have. We'll never be content if we can't let go of the past. The past is gone. The future is not ours. We hope for the future, but the future is not ours. We live in the here and now. Right now is all we have. You could choose to live in hate, or you could choose to live in peace. Abraham was getting very old, and his son Isaac, the son of the promise that God promised to Abraham, was now 40 years old, and he still did not have a wife or any children. And Abraham became concerned about how God was going to fulfill his promise that Abraham's descendants would be as numerous as the sands on the seashore, the stars in the sky, that they would be so numerous that no one could count them. Abraham is wondering, since there aren't any grandchildren from Isaac, would that be the end of the promise? One wonders in times like that if God really meant what he said. Will God really do what he said? Will he really fulfill his promise? Well, Abraham got to thinking, and he went out and he obtained Rebekah to be Isaac's wife. It was love at first sight. The two of them hit it off real good right in the very beginning. They felt like they were in paradise. They were on cloud nine. They were married for 20 years before they had any children. After 20 years, Rebekah became pregnant with twins. And as she was carrying them, the babies jostled each other inside of her womb. And she asked the Lord, Lord, why is this happening? And God said, there are two nations inside of your womb, two peoples that are within you, and that they would be separated from each other, and the older would serve the younger. Jacob and Esau were their names. Now that went against tradition because according to Jewish traditions, the older son received the biggest share of the estate, and yet the Lord is saying the older will serve the younger. Finally, the twins were born. The first boy to come out was very hairy, and so they named him Esau, which may mean hairy. He was also called later on, he was also called Edom, which means red. He had a reddish tint to him, but he liked red meats and the like. Edom, we get our people, the Edomites, from the scriptures. They came from Esau. And if you look at the map, Edom is at the southern tip of Jordan. The second baby came out and he was grasping the heel of Esau. And so they named him Jacob, which means heel clutcher, or sometimes it's used to mean deceiver. And that Jacob would do. He would soon deceive his father, who would be blind, and he would deceive his uncle later on. And you can read all about that in Genesis. Well, the boys grew, and Esau loved the outdoors. He loved to hunt and fish. Jacob, on the other hand, liked being in the city, liked being in the houses. Esau's father, Isaac, then acquired a taste for wild game, which Esau provided for him. And so Isaac favored Esau. Rebekah favored Jacob. Thus began the trouble in paradise. Have you ever seen a family where the parents favor one child over another? That scenario just normally doesn't end well. There's nothing that will separate a family any quicker than one child being favored over another. It stirs up hatred and strife. And a child will sense when someone is favored over them. And there's a good chance that they will be damaged for the rest of their life. They will carry the scars of deep wounds and need some deep healing in their life to overcome those pains. Aren't you glad that with God it doesn't matter who you are? He loves you just the same. He loves you because you are you, and for no other reason. Oftentimes with sibling rivalries, they last a long time, and there's unforgiveness among them. People just can't let go of the past hurts and the baggage that comes with it. And they want to carry it with them wherever they go. And they end up doing tremendous damage to themselves. It doesn't hurt the one that they can't forgive. It hurts them. Things get even worse in Isaac's family, in paradise. One day Esau came in from hunting in the field, and he was just so famished, so hungry, that he just couldn't stand it any longer. And it turns out that his brother Jacob was cooking some red stew. And Esau said to Jacob, "Quick, give me some of that stew. I'm dying. I just need something to eat. The hunger pains are terrible." And Jacob said, "Not so fast. Not before you sign your birthright over to me will I give you any of these stew, or any of this stew." Esau said, "What good is my birthright to me now? Give me something to eat. I've got to have it. I'm starving." Jacob made Esau swear an oath to sell him his birthright. And Esau swore an oath, and then Jacob gave him something to eat and to drink. And Esau had his fill, and then he got up and left. This would be the beginning of a feud that would separate the brothers and break their mother's, Rebekah's, heart. Wounds such as these, family wounds, go deep inside of one, and they're just very hard to heal. Thanks be to God, He loves us so much that He sent His only begotten Son into the world to heal, love, and to forgive, and to restore our relationship between God and man, so that we can live in peace forevermore. And when we talk about living in peace, it's really a choice that only we can make. The Apostle Paul writes in the 12th chapter of Romans, verse 18, "If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live in peace with one another." If you have those deep wounds and deep hurts within you, I implore you now to give them to Jesus. Ask Jesus where He was as you were suffering these pains and hurts. Very often these wounds go clear back to childhood, to infancy. And then ask Him what He wants you to learn from those wounds. And then ask Him to heal you, mind, soul, and body. Amen. Now next week we're going to continue talking about Jacob and Esau and the troubles that came from this broken relationship, because I think it's applicable as we look at our world today. Have a blessed week.